Hi, I'm Austin Eartham, and welcome to the Kitchen Table Podcast. I'm here to motivate, educate, and relate to you guys, sharing my stories, helping you get 1% better in all areas of your life. Welcome to episode 109. Got a lot of psychology stuff to talk about today, and some reflection questions that we should be talking about, no matter if you're in sports, you're a student, or going through your career. A lot of good stuff. Didn't have an episode last week because I had some stuff going on, but we're back on the train this week. Going through our week before and how to improve on it the following week after. So without further ado, here we go. Still no news to go through this week. Hopefully, some things are in the works, and we will get that going to you as soon as it comes out. Anyways, quote of the week this week. I saw when I was reading a book, and it's basically said how you shouldn't live your day based on how the day is going to impact you, but how you're going to impact the day, right? We want to attack the day. We want to be in charge of it, and we want to go get it rather than thinking, oh, I have to go do this today. I have to go do that. Not how can this activity impact me, but how can I impact the activity or the people around me? So we want to continue to attack life in that way and get better. Where I saw God this past week is things in life will just work out. Kind of going through the realm of that lately. I feel like there's some good, some bad, and we'll get into that in a second here. But ultimately, if you do the right thing, that good things will happen. Stay along that onward path with the GPS. Kind of the green fidelity line is a commercial I always think about. If you're following what you think you're supposed to be doing, what he thinks you're supposed to be doing it for him, good things will happen. So. All right. So here we go. What I learned last week is I've used this analogy before that life is a lot like the stock market. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, and you hope that it goes up in bigger chunks than it goes down. So in terms of a business model, you want to make sure that you're getting clients that are obviously paying the bills for you. And if you have a group or a team activity, in my case, you want to have that compared to an individual client because you get one, more bang for your buck, and two, you get to help more people. So had some individual things kind of fall through this week, but waiting on a group session that hopefully will be the big kind of winner and hoping to help a lot of people. Another thing is that you're always going to be in that kind of struggle, time and effort. You always got to have the effort you put forth. Otherwise, you're never going to help yourself get out of the struggle and be on the good side of things. So just because something doesn't work out doesn't mean that you should just cut your losses and move on. Sometimes you should do that. But also sometimes maybe you should, in terms of the stock market, down cost your average and kind of put in a little bit of time each week towards it to help yourself get out of the rut and do better things. So had a couple of things in the realm that didn't work out, but ultimately, again, if you can get the big winner, that's what matters, and then you can help yourself grow. And just know that things aren't going to always go your way, and that's okay. Instead of thinking, "Oh, I'm not good enough," or "I didn't make this happen," think about in terms of, "Hey, what can I do differently next time in order to make sure this doesn't happen again?" It's still a growth opportunity, no matter what. Whether you get what you want or don't get what you want, you have good opportunities to build upon that in the future, as I said a couple weeks ago. So I wanted to reiterate that today. But the biggest thing is going into some psychology stuff that I learned this past week. So I'm just going to kind of shoot through them, and then we'll chat about some things that come to my mind. So first of all, your mood will predict your performance. So for instance, if you are angry, a lot of people you say you need to play angry. Playing angry will often predict the performance, whether depending on what level angry you are at. If you're super just kind of outside the realm, then it's likely that things aren't going to go well. But if you are kind of locked in your anger and you're motivated, then it's a predictor that, hey, you might do well. But in all honesty, it has no effect on the outcome. So just because you're angry, you might play a little bit better, but it doesn't have a significant difference in terms of the outcome of your play, is what research says. Also, that mindfulness training lasts about a month for an amateur. So if you're doing kind of mental training and you stop doing it, it will only last for a month. That's why we say we need to learn it, practice it, and own it. If you can own it, it becomes who you are, and it's just going to happen over and over rather than you thinking, all right, I got it, and now you don't need to work on it again. It's a lifelong process, just as it would be in your sport, in your academic activity. You have to continuously learn and work on your craft to get better. Interventions. So like going through and talking about what's going on, having that kind of therapy or counselor relationship. Interventions can affect the mental performance, and doing that constantly helps you to practice it and remind yourself of it, therefore enhancing performance. Another thing is that enjoyment actually has a large effect on if you do well or not. If something you enjoy, you're much more likely to, one, not have burnout, two, carry on with your activity, and three, perform well over a long period of time. And when we're having fun, we're more likely to have a holistic model, meaning that we're good socially, we're good mentally, we're good physically. We got the skills that we're honing in on, working on mastery, and that leads to better growth. Lastly, is thinking about all this kind of neurofeedback stuff that we're talking about, is that if you actually practice the neurofeedback, I know there's a thing on the Netflix documentary Quarterback that Kirk Cousins goes through. I think it's called Mind Lift, and basically he attaches these electrode type things to his brain, and he does focus training and helps calm him down and see where his brain's picturing things, and helps him to stay mentally stimulated and focused. So neurofeedback has a high effect on basically self-paced sports or individualized sports, to help you become the best version of yourself. The problem for most people is that it's super expensive, but it's a new technology that's really cool, that I personally would like to try. Um, Other things that you probably already know that I think I should mention is that things like anxiety, depression, um, eating disorders have a huge effect, not sleeping, have a huge effect on your performance, and they're all negative effects. And if you have two of those, a lot of times anxiety goes with depression. So it's kind of that compound effect, and you're likely to get closer to burnout, or do drugs, alcohol, other things like that in order to make yourself stimulated or kind of get your head in the game. And ultimately, that leads down to a downward spiral of not only sport, but just overall well being in general. Something that we want to avoid. So we want to make sure that we are talking to somebody if that is the case. So those are just things I learned from a research study. And again, I'm reading this book right now. Here, I'll pull it up so you guys can see it. It's by David Brooks. It's called How to Know Somebody. And there's a lot of good things I want to talk about in that book, coming up here to help basically give you guys some more insight on yourselves and what you could do better, both academically and performance-wise, socially and sport-wise, I guess. Extracurricular. So another thing with anxiety is that when we get anxiety, we have a narrowed peripheral vision. So normally you can kind of see out of kind of all spaces. When you get locked in or focused, or you're thinking about one thing because you're so mad, or you're just locked in and you're worried about what if this happens, and you can only think about that, you can only see directly in front of you, and that will affect your overall performance, because in most sports you need to have kind of a peripheral vision or know what's going on. Of course, unless you are a pitcher, you want to be in this, look at the strike zone for the most part. If you are a batter, you're trying to hit the ball, you're taking a penalty kick or a free throw, obviously those you want narrowed vision. But overall, sports as a whole, as they're moving pretty quickly, again, the higher level you go, the more likely that the speed of the game is the issue. So again, you take it for what it's worth, but usually narrow vision is not good until you're doing a specific skill for a little bit of time. Overall, we want to have a broad vision and have that flow, being able to move freely. Some other things that I learned this past week, going back to how things will work out in life's like a stock market. Just moved to a new house, and you want this, you want that, but ultimately you got to be okay with where you're at. Again, the grass is greener where you water it. And heard a great quote that my dad sent to me the other day, that misery loves company, but joy also loves to have company. And the more joy you can have, the more people you're going to bring with you that are also joyful. So let's always stay positive. Optimism is important, as I've said before. So I think that's important to point out as well. The next thing, kind of going along with the anxiety and things that negatively affected performance, is when we are a coach or a teammate of somebody else, we need to make sure that we don't see grief as a state, right? It's not something they're stuck in. Grief is a process that you go through, whether it is losing a game or maybe it's as big as losing a relative or a parent, to them dying or something serious like that. But either way, we need to listen to them. We need to understand where they're at in the process, and that might affect their performance, and to help them talk through that, work through that, so that they can get to a higher performance level, and also learn from that experience, and have those emotions within them, and understand how they function in different emotions. Let me see here. Other stuff. Um, is so introverts versus extroverts is more coaching aspects now. So the introverts, a lot of people say introverts don't talk, they're shy, quiet, which is somewhat true. But introverts versus an extrovert, man, that's a tongue twister, is mainly about extroverts are more likely to have high risk, high reward. They're more likely to take those risks, right? They're outgoing. They're more likely to talk to a stranger, try to figure out what's going on. More likely to um, I guess, pull the goalie at the end of a hockey game, things like that. By all means necessary, what they need to do to win. Um, then we also have like high consciousness, right? So somebody who's super self-aware, hyper-aware of what their routine is, what they're doing. We need to know that can lead to OCD, and that can lead to us having to have a certain routine and getting thrown off that routine's not good enough. But also that high achievers are usually those types of people. So you need to know in your business versus your team which ones you need to have for what. Same with type of spouse. If you're kind of, let me see what the word is here. I just read this part today. Let me see here. So like if you got neuroticism, which is like people who have more emotional ups and downs, like as a spouse, you want somebody who maybe is a little bit lower on that spectrum so they don't blow up. But also if you just know that person, you can make it work. But those people are also the people who usually lead companies, have less so-called social interactions that are not business-like, less friendly usually, but they get stuff done. And that's what makes the big bucks in companies. Usually that has been males in the past because they're more likely to have that type of mannerisms. So just learning who's on your team is the main point here. How do they react? How do they respond? Are they an agreeable person? Agreeable people are less likely to be leaders because they essentially just agree and go with the flow, and more likely to have groupthink. But you also need those people because you need to have a full team function. So again, knowing your team is super important. That's kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about today, is that as a coach, the more you can know your players, how they react, how they respond, and put that in cohesion, it's going to be more beneficial to everybody in the organization. And also something to think about is if you took the leaderboard or winning out of your team, out of your realm of possibilities, why are they doing what they're doing, and what would be the end goal? That's something to think about going back on a reflection that I think is super important. Again, if you didn't have a scoreboard, if you couldn't win, why are you doing what you're doing? And what would be the end goal of what you are doing? How do you make yourself smile? How do you make yourself proud? How do you know you've reached what you're trying to accomplish? And what's the process towards that? That is basically all I got for today. I will leave you with that. We're about at 14:40. Remember, 14 minutes and 40 seconds is basically 1% of your day. I will give you the last 30 seconds to reflect on that. We'll attack this week, get to know somebody a little bit better and ourselves, be hyper aware, but not too aware that it becomes our kind of end all be all. And enjoy the rest of your week. Talk to you guys later. Bye.